All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Patty Robinson. I want to thank you for being here. I am our faculty director of our Civic and Community Engagement Initiatives program here on campus, as well as one of the co-founders of our Santa Clarita Valley League of Women Voters. Tonight is an incredibly special night. We have this esteemed group who are all running for City Council, and we are very, very honored to have them here, as well as have all of you here to participate in this very important event. Let me go ahead and... So our goal. It is our goal to provide each candidate participating in this forum a fair and equal opportunity to get their message out and for the community to hear it. The event will be video recorded with each candidate presentation loaded on YouTube with links provided to our email list and also posted on our website. And certainly if you didn't sign in tonight, please do so that way we also have your contact information. To qualify for the forum, each individual at the table has been recognized as one of the 15 confirmed City Council candidates currently identified by the City of Santa Clarita's clerk. Each candidate wishing to participate is required or was required to provide a brief narrative indicating why they are running for City Council, as well as 3 short descriptions explaining the 3 most important issues facing our city. The format of this forum has very specific bullets that we want to identify and also recognize. Candidates will be seated at a table arranged alphabetically by last name, with the exception to accommodate Ms. Nichols. All candidate presentations will be made from their seated position at the table. Individual candidate questions will be provided by a team of 3 moderators, all 3 of whom are sitting in the front of the candidates, Lois Baccio, Jim Debris, and Alan Ferdman. Candidates will be provided an equal number of questions and opportunities to respond with answers, limited to 90 seconds. Each candidate is able to see the time clock. Because of technical difficulties, the audience will not be able to see the time clock. But again, it is visible to each of the candidates sitting here. After each candidate will be asked a unique set of questions. The last question asked will give the candidates an opportunity to wrap up and ask for support. The total number of questions asked of each candidate will be determined by the time allocated for the event. Who answers first in every round, or in every rounds, along with the direction of the next candidate, will be determined by the roll of the dice. If the roll indicates a number greater than the number of candidates, we will be using a circular cue, right shifting to the appropriate candidate. An odd roll to proceed to the audience's left and even to the audience's right, as a way, again, to ensure hopefully extreme fairness. Although I did say, were these dice used in Las Vegas, Alan? I mean, I'm just asking. Pardon me?
They're lucky.
They're lucky. Lucky dice. A timing device will be provided counting down time remaining for each candidate's response, with time remaining visible to both the speakers and the audience. Again, as I said, right now, unfortunately, the audience will not be able to see the time clock. A tone will sound along with the appearance of a visual indication when time has expired. Candidates are asked to respect the time allocated. The meeting norms are as follows. All candidates and audience members are expected to be respectful of others. Name-calling or disrupting candidate presentations will not be tolerated. We ask candidates to come prepared to discuss important issues facing the City of Santa Clarita. City Council is a nonpartisan position. Therefore, references to political parties in the candidates' written materials or oral dissertations is not permitted. Signs and posters of any kind are not allowed at the event. Candidates will be provided an area at the event's entrance to place campaign materials for audience consumption. And again, that will be at the, towards the door as you exit the room. To account for video recording of this event, candidates are required to stay seated when responding to questions. So let's get started. The Santa Clarita Valley League of Women Voters, the Canyon Country Advisory Committee, and College of the Canyon Civic Engagement Steering Committee want to thank all candidates and audience members for choosing to join us for this important event tonight. We believe city council elections are important, and having voters understand the candidates' positions will help voters make an informed decision. If you would like more information on hosting organizations, an email sign sheet has been provided. And again, we're having a sign-in sheet at the front desk. So with that, I am going to turn it over to our moderators.
Okay, and now we'll start with our first lucky guest, who is number 12. So we'll start with Mr. Weber, and we're going to go. It's odd, so we're going to go to my left or your right. And for the first question, we're going to ask the same question of all the candidates, and that is, at the Signal Forum last week, Bill Miranda raised a query we thought you would like to chime in on. If elected, what do you believe our city council should do over and above what they are already doing?
I think our city council should focus on sustainability, not just for the next 5 years, next 10 years, but next 50 years. Plan for that. The last thing that we want is for our town to become the San Fernando Valley, and that's a big concern. It's a big concern with everyone that I grew up with that is from here that I speak to. They feel that the amount of traffic congestion is overwhelming, and we're solving problems only to create a new one. We open a road, and there's also a ton of homes that's also opening at the same time. And if we know that that kind of development is going to be happening, we should be planning for the future and know that. I mean, eventually we're going to have high-rise buildings. I mean, that's going to happen, and that's what we should be focusing on more than anything. I think also another big concern is crime, not just like murders and things like that happening, but petty crimes, small burglaries, thefts that are happening at different homes, and the sheriff's department doesn't seem to have the resources to investigate those smaller crimes, and I would make sure that they do have those resources.
Thank you, Mr. Varma.
Thanks. I would continue working with safety. I think safety for everyone in the community. Safety would be my number one thing I would work on. You know, we are very fortunate to have men and women in the service, whether it's fire, police. So that's something that's very important. That's something I would continue to work on with. But I would also I would continue working on getting to know the community more and more. There's different cultures, different communities within Santa Clarita, and it's important to get to know all of them and work with them. And they, everyone has different needs, But I would do things that are immediate, short term, and long term for Santa Clarita. That's what I would be committed to doing.
Ms. Troutman?
There are several things that I think need to be done. We need to be doing much more about getting affordable housing, and I mean for all levels, for students, for seniors. I'm working with a group through the Senior Center, Sisters in Time, to try to come up with a home sharing program, but we need to be creative about how we're dealing with housing. We need to do much more in relation to the homeless plan. We need to actually take charge of the plan that the city has come up with rather than relegating it to the individual agencies and nonprofits that are listed as stakeholders in that. As it's been set up now, those groups are supposed to take charge, and that, I think, is really inappropriate. We are the agency that should be pulling this all together. And we need to be working with the county because the idea is that every city within the county works together to come up with a really comprehensive plan. We need roadway safety. We have too many pedestrians and cyclists being killed on our roadways. We need new roadway design. As we're putting in new roads, we need to go back and review roads that are existing and try to find ways that will provide greater safety. Climate change has to be a big, big deal here. I was listening to something earlier, and we have to be doing everything we can to take control of that, the air quality and water and all of those issues, and doing more green building here so that we can preserve the environment so that our children can have children of their own and not have to worry about their future.
Mr. Smith.
I think any one of us here tonight can answer this question for about 30 minutes because if we're running for office, we feel that the council is not doing enough. So to boil my platform down to a minute and 20 seconds, we need to attack the homeless issue head on. That means being proactive and not reactive on this issue. That means we need affordable housing for students, seniors, and working families, and we need it yesterday. That means we need to legalize or reduce the red tape and regulations on homeowners who are trying to build accessory dwelling units on their properties for lease or sale. And that means that we need to roll back the disastrous Title 14 amendments that have actually resulted in a decrease in homeless individuals taking advantage of our shelter services. For those of you that aren't aware, if you were to walk outside right now and sit on the sidewalk as the law is written in Santa Clarita, you are committing a crime and could be ticketed $500. We need to roll those back. That is a disastrous idea. It has actually been ruled unconstitutional by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the city cannot enforce the laws that they rammed through despite objections from the community and experts on homelessness. We need to address jobs. We need to bring more good mortgage-paying green jobs to this valley, not just minimum wage jobs, not just jobs at a Burger King or an In-N-Out. That means solar jobs and tech jobs. That means bringing our dark fiber network onto the market, either through a public ISP or a public-private partnership, similar to what we've seen in Burbank. And that means joining the Los Angeles County Joint Powers Agreement for the Clean Power Alliance yesterday so that we can bring solar jobs and other green tech jobs that can never be outsourced and never be automated here to the city.
Ms. Nichols?
I guess I just take the whole thing. Well, good evening, everybody. As he was talking, I had been thinking about this anyway. Okay, the first thing is the affordable housing. Now, I think that the city needs to be more creative. I understand that millennials, they go to smaller things. A lot of people, they don't want these big monstrosities that their parents had that they grew up in. They are going smaller. They're not driving, as we read in the paper. They need something that's affordable. So we need to be more creative. I had talked about at the last forum that Seattle has developed a place where there's like 8 apartments that people own that they have a community kitchen because some millennials are losing the sense of any kind of community. It's all Facebook, Twitter, etc. So I think that they need to look ahead at that type of thing. Then it kind of goes into the jobs because the world is moving too fast now. We know that. And the people that are here today might not be here in 5 years. They may be moving on. So we need to look at that as a city and see, that we can sustain it through people transferring jobs, etc. throughout. The homeless, that's an issue. I know that the Appeals Court said that they could not do things like, it's not illegal to be homeless. I've talked to them, a lot of people that are homeless. They told me what they need is a safe place to be.
Mr. Miranda.
So it was my question originally. I'm not sure I got a good answer yet, but that's up to you to decide. One of the things that I look at when I look at sitting on the city council that is harder to see from the outside than once you're inside. It takes 3 votes to get anything done. 3 votes. You could be for all these wonderful things, but you have to persuade 2 other council members to your way of thinking. In order to do that, you have to build strong relationships with council members. The council is a team of 5 players if it's functioning efficiently and effectively. If it's not, then it becomes bombastic, it becomes fighting, it becomes arguing, and nothing gets done. So public safety is the number one concern of every council member. We're doing all kinds of things for public safety, including adding more deputies and building a new sheriff's station. Economic development with the Economic Development Corporation, working closely with COC, the college. we are doing things to bring more jobs to the community. Housing, there's a shortage of housing throughout California. We're doing our part by building more housing. Go to my website, billmiranda.com, and see my positions on a lot of these issues.
Ms. McLean.
Thank you. Well, our city is one of the safest, cleanest, most family-oriented cities in Southern California. And although we are the third largest city in Los Angeles County, we still have a hometown feel. This is the same thing I'm told over and over. These things don't come easy. It takes a lot of hard work. And that's why I am active in many regional boards and commissions and JPAs in order to keep us that way, such as the Southern California Association of Governments, the California League of Cities, which is made up of 480 cities, the San Fernando Valley Council of Governments. I am the Vice President of the North County Transportation Coalition, and this gives me the ability to work with all levels of government, addressing issues such as homelessness, providing affordable housing, maintaining and being able to afford our new roads and infrastructure. Our City Council is tackling the homeless issue head on. The City of Los Angeles and all of Los Angeles County probably has tens of thousands of homeless. We here in Santa Clarita have between 300 and 600 homeless, and I hope we get to address this issue a little bit later because it's much deeper than just being able to do it in just a few seconds. Thank you.
Mr. Hargett.
Good evening. A little better? All right, so I'd say first place to start, mental health. It's an issue that we aren't addressing across the board. You want to talk homelessness, you want to talk crime, you want to talk suicide, you want to talk drug abuse. It all comes back to mental health on so many levels, especially with our young people. So what are we doing with the County of Los Angeles, with the state, to create better access to mental health for the people living in the Santa Clarita Valley? Aside from that, I know we've already done a lot with open space, but I think we need to double and triple and quadruple down on that. The more we're going to build, the more we need to buy up every piece of space we can to create an open green belt for our people of this community. Thank you.
Mr. Haddock.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems that everyone complains about is traffic, and that comes down to a lack of jobs in Santa Clarita. Some estimates put 50 to 75% of people are commuting outside of the Santa Clarita Valley for their work. And to me, that's unacceptable. I want to see bringing more jobs here so that we have less incentive to go over the hill and reduce some of our carbon emissions and reduce traffic and congestion leaving the valley. And then, as has been mentioned, we have a homelessness issue. And the most recent count was about 300 people, and some estimates put it up around 3,000. And we need to tackle that head on. I think we should have a dedicated staff member at City Hall to coordinate between the dozen or so nonprofits and organizations that try to provide services for the homeless. And a lot of those organizations don't really talk to one another. So we need someone at City Hall dedicated to coordinate all of those various services. And affordable housing is also a major issue that we need to do better on a city council level. We're seeing a lot of our seniors getting priced out of their homes, and to me that's absolutely unacceptable. No one should have to sell their home and be forced to move someplace else because they can no longer afford it, and no one should have the rent raised on them unnecessarily. So, thank you.
Mr. Gibbs?
Thank you, Alan. I'll actually echo what Councilmember Miranda said. He is very correct when you talk about 3 votes to get something done. Did I lose the microphone? Okay.
The audience.
So when I talk about my platform, I have 3 things that I think the council has done well that would expand and make them even better. And one of my cornerstones is talking about the Public Safety Commission. We always talk about how we are a great and safe city. I would like us, as Logan had mentioned, to start taking very proactive responses to issues like the opioid crisis, area-specific crime, and homelessness, to have a dedicated resource at City Hall that is working with our first responders and our community members to aggressively tackle problems that we face. The second thing I say is City of Santa Clarita is very well known for having a balanced budget, a 20% operating reserve, and a great AAA bond rating. One of the things that gets me a little depressed after I read that, though, is our ties into the CalPERS debts. CalPERS, even though it's a state-run issue, we are tied into a significant amount of debt to the point that California has total control over what they're doing their investments in. So when they miss their investments, they just come back to the cities and say, hey, you guys got to pay a lot more. I want us to be very aggressive in paying down our obligations so that when they miss the boat in the future, we're not stuck holding the bag. And the last big thing is the economic development. We need to get people off the roads. We need to get them back into Santa Clarita. We need to relook at the Portobello plan there at Whitaker Burmite to make sure it has the industrial parks and the business infrastructure we need to bring the roads and the jobs back to Santa Clarita. Thank you.
Mr. Dean?
Thank you. We live in a great city. It's not just one neighborhood. It's all neighborhoods. And just as symbolic, it's not just one area. It's all areas. But with it comes issues. One of the biggest issues, can everybody hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the issues is our tremendous traffic and congestion. I think the City Council needs to put more effort, more money into our traffic, our congestion, our synchronizing of lights, restriping streets. There's a lot that can be done. Another thing is I'd like to see more amenities for Canyon Country. If we can take a 1940s downtown Newhall and turn it into an upscale community with upscale restaurants and trendy stores, and we could do the same thing in Canyon Country. And finally, there is one more thing that I'd like to see the City Council do. And it's always been something that's bothered me for a long, long time. I've been on a lot of board of directors over the years. And one of the things I'd like to see happen with our City Council is that any council member should have the right to put an issue on the agenda and not have 3 votes to put an item on the agenda. I think that's the right of being a member of the City Council. If you have something that you want to put on the agenda, you should have that right. Thank you.
Mr. Boyston?
What the city has not done and should be doing. First, they should be building the roads and not just talking about them because the traffic's getting worse and worse by the day. Wiley Canyon Connector should be actually already completed to Via Princesa by now. The Magic Mountain Parkway should have already had the EIR done on it, should be sited and should be designed. And the Santa Clarita Parkway should also at least be in the EIR stage. That's because these things take years to complete and not wait, as the city manager has said, well, that's not the way we build roads. We wait until someone comes and brings in a few thousand houses and then we build the road. No, we need to build those roads. We should have built those roads. Homelessness. We should have already built the year-round homeless shelter. When I was on the council last time, I tried to even put it on the agenda to be part of the task force, and the city council rejected even putting it on the agenda to talk about becoming part of that county task force, which eventually became Measure H. So yes, it should already have been built. Water. We need to be it's in Sacramento and working strongly with the state to make sure there's more water supply. We should not have to take tiny showers and have our lawns die here just because we don't have enough water and they want to bring in more houses. So we really need to advocate for more water supply. And we need to poll the public to find out what the public wants, because we need to listen to them more. They have a lot of great ideas. We should know where they stand so we can follow through.
Ms. West?
Thank you. We need to keep what we have. Santa Clarita is a great place. It's a safe place. But we're all frustrated with roads, so we need to build Via Princesa. We've already started that planning process, and we need to get it all the way across the valley. Let's just talk about crime. Crime got worse after Prop 47, Prop 57, and Prop AB 109, and that has left our sheriff's hands tied. So we really do need to push the state legislature to recognize the problem they've created, and we need to push hard for public safety. It's the most critical thing we can do. Public safety, public safety. And drugs. Well, I think we should do more on drugs. Heroin really does kill, and it's doing it across the nation. So we have a Heroin Kills program. We have Defy It. We have the J-Team, but we need to do more. And I just want to say, regarding the homeless, we need to get the shelter built. We bought the land and got the land deal closed this last year, so now we need to build the shelter. It costs $85,000 a door in state and local permitting fees for the first unit you build. So every unit is $85,000 a door. Got to figure out a way, if the millennials want smaller units and they want to be close to transit and they want to be by trails and they want to live different, got to figure out a way to bring the costs down. And that would be one place to do it. And we need to get back to work on the state legislature on mental health centers. They took them away 40, 50 years ago. There's no mental health centers. Mental health is a mess. It's destroying our veterans. It's destroying elderly. A lot of people, they don't know if they've taken the medication. We need that done.
Well, thank you. Now to start the first round of individual questions. The lucky number is 8, which would start with Sandra. And we're going to move from there, going the other way.
Yeah, we're going to go the other way. Okay, shall I start? Okay, Ms. Nichols. You indicated that increasing the coverage of public transportation is a means of solving our traffic congestion. Yet, in Santa Clarita, like most cities, ridership of mass transit is down. Should ridership on public transportation be subsidized by the city?
Well, I don't know. Well, I suppose in a way it should be subsidized. I know somebody at another panel said that seniors, they should get free. Well, they do. 60 and older, we get free rides. I know that right now, COC, they've got passes for like $20. That's a good thing. But more people need to get some kind of incentive to take the bus, because they just don't. They just drive across town. And a lot of times there's just no reason. I understand that there's some bus stops that actually there's no bus stop there. I mean, over, I don't know, where Copper Hill area, or et cetera. I don't know exactly where, but I've heard that before. We need to publish it more. I know that if you get on the bus, there's all kind of things, but it needs to be put in every magazine, some kind of Santa Clarita magazine, some kind of incentive for people to ride the bus. If it's, 5 rides free or something, to get them used to it. Some people tell me, well, I can't get on the bus because they don't know there's a ramp. And I go, but if I can get on the bus, you can get on the bus. But they don't think that they can do it. And so people don't even really understand. Maybe some kind of demonstration at different senior centers, senior buildings, COC, some kind of demonstration, because people don't even know how they do it. Thank you.
Mr. Dupree, you're going to ask Logan a question?
Jim?
This is for Logan. Sorry, Mike here. You've stated that we need to significantly improve our efforts to eradicate the drug epidemic. Do the city's efforts need to be coordinated with other agencies, and what specific measures can the city take on its own or in coordination with other agencies?
Absolutely. So when we address issues like the opioid and heroin epidemic, which is claiming lives right here in our community, I guarantee you there's a number of people in this room who can raise their hand if I ask whose life has been impacted by the heroin and opioid epidemic right here in our community. Last May, we saw, I think it was 9 overdoses and 1 fatality at Henry Mayo in a single night. And when Los Angeles County gave out Narcan to their deputies, they gave it to Santa Clarita first. That's how bad the scale of this problem is here in Santa Clarita. We need more diversion control. That means making sure that over-the-counter prescriptions are not ending up where they should not be. That means buyback programs, anonymous drop boxes, et cetera, based on models we've seen be successful in other cities. That means revised hospital ED policies. So we need to work with Henry Mayo and other caregivers to revise their policies and revise the situations in which they're giving out harmful opioids, because there's a lot of times where we see these painkillers prescribed to people or overprescribed when they don't necessarily need it. And we need to look at solutions that we have seen concrete data have worked in other cities. The reality is we have good science that says cities that have safe and legal access to medical cannabis have as much as a 33% reduction in opioid overdose rate. So we need to get our heads out of the sand, and we need to look at how to provide a safe and legal market to cannabis, particularly to medical patients here in the city. We've seen council members express support for medical cannabis access, not talking about recreational necessarily, but every council member voted to ban medicinal access just a few short months ago. So it's important to me that we look at the evidence that we have for ways to solve this problem, and we base our solutions on that.
Ms. Troutman, the construction and establishment of a year-round permanent shelter has been discussed at City Hall for almost the last 20 years. Although the city has currently donated land for that purpose, the end game is nowhere in sight. In your narrative, you indicated the opinion the city should do more to ensure rapid development of a year-round homeless shelter. What do you envision as the appropriate amount of support which this should be provided by the city?
Well, I think that while generous to get the land for the homeless shelter, the city needs to invest. We've pushed this off for far too long. We need to invest some money from the city, and we need to find other grant money, and we need to work with the homeless shelter, with Bridge to Home, to try to get this up and running as soon as possible. You know, we always need to be looking for creative avenues to do things, to get money, but this is something that, as you've said, we've been talking about this forever, and they've been kicked around, and the county should be, you know, I mean, we should be doing more to get the money from the county in the program. Measure H and see what we can do in that regard. So any resources that we can tap into, we need to get that up and running. We also need to, I think, look at bringing in some more support for services that are needed for people who are homeless. And, you know, part of the thing, too, is preventing homelessness. As I said, I'm working with seniors to try to prevent homelessness, to do a home sharing program, but we can do those dwelling units. We can do other things that, and you know, be creative about housing, too, communal housing of some sort, so that we can make sure we have housing for people as they need it. I don't know that rent control is the answer, but we have to do something to stop people from gouging and price gouging, especially with the mobile home parks.
Oh, doesn't want to come. Mr. Varma, you're next. You've expressed a desire to build a monorail system along the Santa Clara River. How would you propose to fund and mitigate the environmental impact of that project?
It's a lot of planning, a lot of engineering, and money. But it would be a very long-term solution to our traffic problem. I'm an Uber driver. I'm in traffic every single day. I completely get it. And as more people, there's new communities being built, more people are coming up here. Infrastructure is a very important aspect of our valley. And having an infrastructure of a monorail. I've spoken with engineers that work at Hyperloop that live here. Dubai has taken orders. India has taken orders. It can absolutely be done here. There's monorails that go up to the Getty. So as it gets older, I mean, as people get older, you can have a convenient, comfortable way to go from Canyon Country to Valencia, from Newhall to even Castaic. So we have there's ways of sponsorship. There's ways of charitable donations, charitable trusts that can set up the funding. But it takes a community to really realize how massive of a valley we are, and to get from one point to the other, we're going to need some long-term thinking.
Sean, when interviewed by the Gazette, you indicated you want to use your technological background to make Santa Clarita a smart city by improving infrastructure to support various small businesses. Can you expand on what smart technology you're referring to and how you plan to implement these changes to make this a reality?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. That's probably the strongest field that I feel is relevant to jobs. And the reason being is if you have a business and you have, let's say, a large business, you want to measure that business in all sorts of ways. and then you make adjustments to that business and then optimize it. If you run Amazon, you're going to be looking at your warehouses, you're going to be looking at how things are performing and all that kind of stuff. So the solutions to, like, for example, traffic may not just be building more roads. Maybe we have smarter roads that have artificial intelligence and learning technology, and where it can make adjustments. If somebody gets injured across town, they should have green lights, going all the way through. Now, I know the infrastructure is already built there. They already have fiber, and I would really put a lot of effort behind those kinds of things. It's not just that; it's sensors. It's making the whole city smart. It's doing incentives for homeowners for all sorts of programs like Nest thermostats, solar. Some of the stuff that they've already done. But I would go further on those kinds of incentives and those kinds of ideas. Thank you.
Ms. West, from time to time during the election process, many of the candidates have spoken about the general plan, one valley, one vision, allowing overdevelopment and traffic congestion. Yet in closing at the Signal Forum, you stated OVOV is a good plan. Could you share your perception on the merits of our current general plan?
I think OVOV accomplished one of the best things that we could do. It put us in a collaborative position with the County of Los Angeles, and we'd obviously been at odds with them over development for a really long time. Ergo, Santa Clarita adopted a open space policy, which has helped considerably. We're at almost 10,000 acres of open space right now. It is not a perfect plan. No general plan is. We do have limited land left within this city, and most of the building that I see is around us with the county or coming into the area of the city from the county. We work with them. We're partnering with them. I'm very much an open space and greenbelt person, and I love my trails and I love my city. So we're working hard with the county to minimize impacts, but everybody also says they want housing for seniors, for the young, more units to accommodate the pent-up need. So we really have to find that balance within the plan. No plan's going to be perfect, but we're going to continue to work with it, with the county, with our community, and find the balance to meet the needs the best we can in this community and keep it a great community at the same time.
Mr. Boydston, you talked earlier a little bit about water, and in your narrative you stated, I believe our quality of life is threatened by the lack of water. With the city having a seat on the Groundwater Sustainability Agency and 2 seats on the SCV Sanitation District, how do you believe the city can take the lead in balancing our future water with improved development?
Leadership is about being in front. Leadership is about being very vocal about the fact that Santa Clarita is in the edge of a desert. We simply are. Santa Clarita, in fact, Greater Los Angeles ran out of water in 1902 until Mr. Mohon brought a bunch down. And then it ran out again in the late 60s. So in the 70s, we did the water project. But since then, we have not had any infrastructure added. 75% of the water that goes down all of the rivers in California goes right out into the ocean. If we had a small percentage of that and we stored it in reservoirs during our wet years, we wouldn't run into the same problems. So how do we do that here in Santa Clarita? We do that by lobbying very, very hard in Sacramento and standing up and saying, hey, here in Southern California, we need more water. And yes, we need to conserve our water, and we need to put as much back in the ground as we can, and we need to use our purple pipe, actually hook it up, not just lay it down, but hook it up and get the sanitation water and pump it to the top of the valley so that it can percolate down into the earth so that we don't lose the water that we are sending downstream right now to the ocean. That's critically important, and our sanitation district has not done that, but they should.
Mr. Dane, last week at the Signal Forum, you mentioned the need for our city to implement districts and term limits. Can you expand on the benefits of implementing these 2 changes to our city government?
I think our city is long overdue for term limits and districts. there are districts and term limits in all governments. The President of the United States must abide by term limits. Our members of the state Senate, our United States senators, there's a reason why the people some years back voted to have term limits. And districts, I think districts, it's not that one person, if you have 3 people all living in one district, it seems to me that you're not going to have as much representation for the whole city as a whole if everybody's pretty much, or a majority of them, are living in one district. I think having term limits brings new ideas, it brings about fresh new people and new ideas and new concepts and visions of where our city should go, and we don't stay stagnant. I don't see where we're moving anywhere at this point in time. We have a major problem with roads and congestion, and we've had this for years and years and years, and yet it doesn't change. And it seems the only time it comes up, the issue of roads and congestion, is at election time. Other than that, I never hear about it throughout the year. And so this is one of the reasons. Thank you.
Mr. Gibbs, in the area of public safety, your narrative included a call to create a public safety commission. If implemented, how would the Public Safety Commission differ from the current City of Santa Clarita Public Safety Committee? What would its role be? Would the commission include members of the public, and would it meet regularly?
Thank you, Alan. Yes, it would. I envision the Public Safety Commission to be an enhancement in the way that we see what, like, the Parks and Recs Commission has done. We have in our city, our Parks and Recs land is above and beyond. I think a lot of cities are very envious of what we've done, and I believe that commission has been a big part of that. So when I look at the Public Safety Commission, where it differs from the committee that you mentioned is it will meet regularly. It won't just meet when a certain action they believe is necessary. I want it meeting every month. I want them continually talking about roads. I want to continually talk about homeless and opioids. I want to talk about our first responders and our public safety issues. It should be a very proactive group. It should be not just community members that are in the first responder business, but I want people from homeless advocates and people who deal with mental health to be involved with this. And one of the big items I'd like to see right off the bat is I'd like to see an evacuation plan for various areas of the city. We are surrounded by forest land. And while we had an initial discussion here at the COC for a private group meeting, I want that brought out of privacy and into City Hall. I want the community involved. I want the stakeholders involved so we can find ways to facilitate public safety issues and make it a priority at City Hall.
This one's mine.
Is it my turn?
Lost track. Sorry. Mr. Haddock.
Yes.
Your proposal is like everybody else. Everyone on this panel, by the way, spoke of the issue of traffic, without exception. To improve traffic, you're proposing to include modifying our transit system to offer something more akin to Uber or Lyft with a computerized system that would route a van or a bus to their destinations.
Yeah.
Uber and Lyft are successful because they are taxi-like, serving one passenger at a time. How can vans and buses carrying multiple passengers successfully operate on a customized approach?
Well, right now the big inhibition for mass transit is trying to get from where you are to where you need to be. And the convenience of Uber and Lyft is it comes to where you are and takes you to wherever you need to go. Right now we do have somewhat dynamically routed transit for seniors that does somewhat of the same thing. Lyft actually piloted a program very similar, actually exactly the same thing up north, and got a lot of flack because everyone said, oh, you just invented a bus. But the idea is that it dynamically routes to where people are and where they're going so that we don't have set routes, set times, and the system could be smart enough to automatically route everyone the pickup times and their destination to get them where they need to go, or pick them up within a 15-minute window and drop them off within a 15-minute window. And right now, if you're going over the hill to West Hollywood or something, You have to get up at like 5:30, get out to the bus stop, and hope that you make it there on time by starting your job at 9 a.m. So I think we can do a pilot program, spend $50,000 on one of those Ford Transit Connects that holds up to like 16 people, and just see how it goes and see if it works, and if anybody wants to use it, and expand it out from there. But I think we could start with a baby step like that.
Mr. Hargett, in your narrative, you indicated business attraction and job growth is one of the city's major challenges. What would you do as a city council member to attract business and job growth to Santa Clarita?
I think the biggest thing is finding incentives that companies want to come here. Every city's got an angle. Every place has it. What can we do for you to bring you to our city? So I think we need to step up, creating easier opportunities for companies to do startups here. Reduced fees, reduced startup costs at City Hall, programs to incentivize lower rent or subsidize rent for new businesses to come in. We have a lot of industrial park space that sits unused. We should be reaching out to all these buildings, all these businesses. What can we do to fill your space with a new business and help this business become part of our valley? Starting off in a place like that to encourage businesses to come to our valley, great place.
Ms. McLean, you state in the materials that you submitted that you will continue to advocate for affordable housing. What specifically do you believe the city can do to promote affordable housing in our valley?
Well, that is an interesting issue. That's something that is being talked about quite a bit. And I believe that it is supply and demand. We had an economic downturn several years ago, and buildings stopped, completely stopped. So now we're being faced with the shortage of supply of homes to build and for people to be able to afford their homes. The city put in $5 million for an affordable complex. There's 39 units, which isn't a lot, but those affordable units are beautiful and gorgeous, and if you pass by, you would never think of them as low income or not being taken care of, because they are. They're just beautiful. So that's one thing. The other thing that we did is, and I personally helped raise funds for our Homes for Heroes and Homes for Families for veterans. It is a complex which is for veterans and their families coming back from service that they can afford, and it is providing veteran services. I think what we need to do, and I think we're going to see a difference and a turnaround in that because of the fact that our economy has become better, and we are going to be experiencing a supply for seniors and such. No senior should ever be priced out of their homes. And my time is up, but I would love to be able to talk about this some more. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miranda, in your narrative, you mentioned, I voted to protect our seniors from unfair rent increases. Since keeping seniors from becoming homeless is a great deal concern to our community and to everyone on this panel, could you expand on your achievements and on your future plans to improve this issue?
Well, unfair rent increases for a senior is anything they can't afford. It's anything that will kick them out of their homes and put them out into the streets. In this particular case, mobile homes, and there are some wonderful mobile homes, but mobile homes generally, and I'm really generalizing here, is the last home before homelessness for these seniors. If they can't pay their rent, if the rents are increased because the owner of a mobile home park or the owner of a mobile home raises rents to the point where they can't afford to pay that rent, they're going to be homeless, right? They're not in mobile homes because it's the third least place to be. It's the worst place to be for them, and I'm generalizing, so please accept that. It's the worst place for them to be before homelessness, right? So what would I do? The housing is a problem throughout the region. I sit on the Southern California Community Economic Development and Housing Committee. It's a regional group. And I have to tell you, we had a meeting this past Thursday, and everybody was talking about housing. What are we going to do about it? The one solution that everybody wants to avoid is build more housing. I'm a businessman. I know the law of supply and demand. You have to increase supply to reduce the pricing and meet the demand.
Okay. Let's try again. The number is number 9, which is Mr. Smith, and we're going to go that way again.
Alan, you love it.
Hey, they got a nice house.
Got to break it up.
I think I asked you the last question, didn't I? In your closing statement at the Signal event last week, you mentioned championing. You know what the word I'm trying to say is. Environmental justice. Could you explain what environmental justice is and how you would apply the concept in the city of Santa Clarita?
Absolutely. So environmental justice means a couple things to me. One of them, it means that we're recognizing that disproportionately environmental disasters and environmental hazards in our city disproportionately impact low-income communities and communities of color. I know Val Verde is technically outside the Santa Clarita city limits, but Val Verde is one of the highest concentrations of Spanish-speaking individuals in the Santa Clarita Valley, and our city did little to nothing to oppose the expansion of the largest open-air landfill in North America, which not only presents a cancer risk to Val Verde and Castaic residents, but to businesses and homeowners here in the Santa Clarita Valley, here in the city of Santa Clarita proper, because the reality is hazardous air doesn't stop at the city border. It just keeps going. It also means that we're talking about making sure that we have an environment not just in our valley, but on our planet that my generation can have kids in and grow up in. I don't know if anybody's seen the news in the past 24 hours, but a recent report came out suggesting we have less than a decade to stop irreversible damage to our planet thanks to climate change. That means we need to, again, yesterday, join the Clean Power Alliance with Los Angeles County so we can start delivering as much as 100% renewable energy to homeowners. And anybody that doesn't like the program is not forced into it. You can opt out. But the kicker is it actually reduces your utility rates in most cases. So we can reduce rates for businesses and homeowners while bringing clean energy to the city. And it helps us comply with state renewable standards under AB 32 and SB 100, which recently passed, which put California on track to hit 100% renewables in the next few decades.
Ms. Troutman, you state that commuters need better access, need better transit options, including continuous service during days and evenings, and getting commuters from mass transit stops to their destination. Ridership is down, but assuming that your proposals would increase ridership, what would they cost and how would they be funded?
Okay, so you're asking, well, all right. Let me start by saying that, first of all, if we can get people to where they need to be in the city to reduce local congestion, we could use smaller vehicles to do that. So that's one of the things that we can do. For the Metrolink, we need to, I think, push for more money. I know there's a lot of discussion about extending the hours, but that's a big problem. We need to be able to have people who can go down to Valley, to Los Angeles, to other points. So I think we need to be doing more to get some of that money. We should also be pushing for planning for light rail that could take people down to the airport. Into West Los Angeles. We already know that there's a bus, Antelope Valley Transit is working to bus people down to locations or work locations here, but I think we can find ways to bring workers here and get workers out of the valley more efficiently. If we had buses that ran on a schedule that worked for people, that would be very helpful. And the other thing is, I think you can have more ridership if people can find parking spaces at the Metrolink stations, which is a big problem. If you have a local commuter system that can get people to those locations in time to get the trains, that would be, I think, a big help too.
Okay, again, Mr. Varma, you indicated that you have a long and a short-term solution or multiple solutions for health care in our community. Could you share your vision for health care and include how city government would be involved? What have you learned about the city of Santa Clarita by being an Uber driver in our city?
I moved around a lot. I was born in India and moved around a lot. I'm clearly running for city council here because I truly love it here. And I get the charm of this place. If the entire country of Canada can legalize marijuana, if our state is legal, there's no reason anyone should leave Santa Clarita to go get medicine. I've personally given too many chemotherapy patient rides out of Santa Clarita just to get medicine. And one of the sobering reality is it's not for kids. You know, on the last forum, they were worried about kids walking through a dispensary, but there's liquor stores that they're walking by. It's not for it's for seniors, and for a city council to not know their demographic, that's I mean, I've been fortunate to not only work with millennials on vocational education, and there's a very big opportunity for that. Nothing's entitled to them. They're not, nothing's below them. They can learn landscaping, cybersecurity, post-production. These things, I've given rides to people that are going to be $500,000 in debt coming out of USC without a guarantee of a job. Millennials can get educated, get work ready the very next day on vocational education.
Thank you. Mr. Weber, when interviewed by the Gazette, you indicated that you believe there's a problem with the same incumbents in what you called the rotating circle that goes through all the commissions, all the water boards, and all the school boards. Can you explain what you meant by those comments and how you intend to remedy the situation?
Well, first off, there's a lot of great ideas that are coming about, on this platform today, and I think that there should be more interaction with the city. There should be more interaction with the city council, not just when we're here and we're talking. And it should be all the time. There should be systems set up for that to happen. And that's just one of the many, many concerns. There's a diversity of ideas. There's the saying that you have two people in the same room, one of them's not needed. I mean, if you have a city council that they all think the same, they all have the same kind of agendas, there's a small variation, and it's sometimes about, not that we all disagree. I think everybody up here cares about Santa Clarita. That's why they're here. All of you obviously do. And it's not just about people having the same people, the same circle. Then you don't know, and then the whole conversation is what's in that little circle. And we're at 250,000. We're going to be at 500,000 people. They want some interaction. They want to, communicate. And when they come to city council hearings and they're up there, they're talking at the podium, and they're with their concerns, they'd like to see those concerns addressed. Thank you.
Ms. West, in your narrative, you stated, we're focusing on a mix of housing options, including adding infill development, which adds much-needed units. Where would you propose to build the new infill developments, and are you suggesting forced redevelopment of existing neighborhoods?
Well, first of all, redevelopment is taken away by the state, which created quite a dilemma for creating senior housing, which used to be much simpler than it is today. But millennials want to live in smaller units, and they want to live near transit and trails. So obviously, near Metrolinx is appropriate. Everybody's mentioned Whitaker-Burmite. There's a transit station right there, and there's lands right by that transit center, as well as out in Canyon Country and in Newhall. I believe that we have to look at smaller units, still keeping quality, but also making sure that things are within walking distance and trail distance, and creating the type of housing people want. Somebody mentioned boarding houses. That was popular in America at one time. We've got to look at creating different types of 21st century housing, but it still needs to be quality. It still needs to meet the people's needs, and it needs to be safe, secure, and it needs to be something that Santa Clarita is proud of.
Mr. Boydston, in closing at the September 19th CCAC meet and greet, you indicated a number of important issues you presented to the City Council, but were unable to have them placed on the agenda. If elected to the City Council in 2018, what changes in approach would you implement to gain consensus in order to discuss pending issues at the Council's open meetings?
Thank you for that question. Yes, it was very frustrating for the people that are maybe watching or in the room very quickly. The city of Santa Clarita didn't used to have this rule. The first time when I was on the council and I was appointed, actually any city council person, like in most governments at most levels, can put something on the agenda to be discussed. But after I served the first time and then stepped off voluntarily, the next time I came on and I was elected, I said a lot of things and talked about a lot of things that when I was in my appointed term, and it was not necessarily appreciated because they were pieces that were the public was bringing forward to me to put on the agenda. And people would come up and, as a citizen, say, I would like you to put this on the agenda so that we could talk about it. And so I would go and put it on the agenda, and I did that in the first term. So in the second term, right after I got elected, the city council changed all the rules. They actually changed the rules so that it would be harder to do that. And so the city manager, he can put anything he wants on the agenda, but it takes 3 council people. So 1 city manager equals 3 council people. If elected, I will work very hard, and hopefully the press will help by telling our council that in a democracy, a person who is elected by thousands of people should have the ability to take a citizen's idea and put it before the electeds to be considered.
Mr. Dean, you stated that one of the ways we can alleviate traffic congestion is to build bus turn-ins on existing streets. And we were just wondering, how can that be done with without either taking away an existing traffic lane or a sidewalk, taking out part of the sidewalk? It seems that either one of those would aggravate traffic congestion.
Well, not actually, it wouldn't. I'm going to give you a couple examples. On McBean Parkway, the bus stop that's beside Target store there is a nightmare. I remember one time watching somebody walk across the street with a bike to get on there, and all traffic started to back up behind the bus. People in the parking lot could not get out, so that started to become congested. And if you look at that area, you can see, yeah, you're right about the sidewalk and property. You would have to do eminent domain. But there is enough room, and I've gone back and looked at that. There is enough room there where you can actually go back toward Target and do a complete bus in-turn there and a bus turnout without a problem, and then take the area where the people wait for the bus and move it back. But there is room to do that. If you take a look at Newhall Ranch Road, they've got them all over the place there, and it works. There's a place on Soledad by White's Canyon, the same nightmare. If you look at that property, you will find, yes, there is enough room where they can do eminent domain if need be, and take enough land to do the bus turn-in and move the waiting area behind. But it can be done. It needs an engineering planning. But I've looked at this, and I've drawn it out, and I've measured it, and it can be done. Thank you.
Mr. Gibbs.
Alan again.
Hi there. It is it is clear the city will have to make significant investments in infrastructure if it is going to continue to be a great place to live. How do you propose financing that infrastructure so that the cost can be recouped in an aggressive manner?
Alan, could you repeat the first part of it? I was smart enough.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is clear that the city will have to make significant investments in infrastructure if it is going to continue to be a great place to live. How do you propose financing that infrastructure so that the costs are recouped in an aggressive manner?
Sure. So the financing, the developments, the things the city need, it has to be done with all the stakeholders. The city can't come in and just say, we're going to build the entire road that's going to go across from Magic Mountain Parkway or Santa Clarita Parkway. The cost would be tremendous if the city tried to take it on its own. And not only that, if they decided to take a bond to do it, it would take years, 30 years and 40 years that we'd be passing on this cost to our kids. I don't have a problem with finding investments, but the city just needs to be a part of it. The city needs to look at any issue and decide what is best for the community. And that's what a city council member is supposed to do. You take any issue, you take partisanship out of it, and you decide what is the best thing that can be done for everybody in the community. So when it comes to doing the development that we need, especially when we talk about Burmite as we get closer to that development, we need to work with stakeholders, we need to work with developers, we need to work with the community to decide what is it we truly need, what is the needs of the community, what's going to be built there, and then how we're going to pay for it. All of that is absolutely critical, working with the county, working with developers, working with the state, the federal government, whoever we got to shake down to get a couple of bucks from. Everyone needs to be a part of it in order to be affordable and profitable for the future.
Okay, Mr. Haddock. In your narrative, you stated we should be working on more medium density housing near mass transit. We've heard that before this evening, and mixed use areas allowing for walkable cities. Where would you propose to build the new developments? And are you suggesting forced redevelopment of existing neighborhoods?
I'll answer the second part first. I don't think we should force redevelopment. I think there are better ways to incentivize things. If a city block suddenly becomes desolate, and then we can improve it. But we've got about 1,000 acres right in the middle of town. As Mayor West said, we've got it right next to the Metrolink station there. That would be a perfect place to build some medium density and housing. And then we've got other projects in Santa Clarita, like the Vista Canyon project in Canyon Country, where it has mixed use. And then Old Town Newhall, we're going to have the first floor dedicated to retail, and then everything above it's going to be housing. And I think those are great projects. And we should build some more of those in town. I think the Burmite would be a good place to start with that.
Mr. Hargett, as a professional EMT, if you became a city council member, what changes would you implement to improve emergency response times?
Great question. To start off, I think we need to look at building a hospital in Canyon Country, if not expanding at least urgent care services in Canyon Country so the community has a local resource that they can go to. Aside from that, we've done a great job with building fire stations. We need to lean on the county to provide additional ambulances and increase the staffing on those levels. Look at creating additional paramedic squads so we have that higher level of care that can respond to emergencies. And also simple things with our traffic patterns, like the medians that we're putting in all over the place, which look beautiful, but are almost impossible for emergency vehicles to cross over if we need to flip an emergency U-turn. So reducing those to a lower height so we can drive over them and quicker respond to an emergency is something that's key. Little mix of all of that. Really the big thing's adding those additional fire, ambulance resources for the community.
Ms. McLean, as of late, Santa Clarita Library System users have voiced concern about material availability. At the Signal Forum, you mentioned having to supplement our library's material by using an LA County Library branch. What are your plans to mitigate this situation, and how long do you believe it will take to bring the Santa Clarita Library System up to par with the LA County Library System?
Well, we left the LA County Library System because they were having trouble funding our libraries to the extent of what the taxes we were putting into the library system. In other words, each household was paying about $26, and we were not getting $26 back for our value. So we decided to leave the LA County Library and take over the system. We went to have managed the library, we went to LSSI because the city did not have the expertise to run a library system. So we went to LSSI because they were able to provide longer service hours, the money to provide more books, and to provide the ability for people to get the books they wanted from wherever they needed to get it from. Just recently, the city decided that LSSI, they sold their company, so the management wasn't quite up to par. So we went to our own, took library in-house. So now the city is managing it. And we are slowly building up the fact that we are providing the services that we did not get with the management company. We are building our stock. We are building a way for people to be able to get the books that they need. We are able to, we are going to be able to provide more services quickly. We already are making a lot of improvements and in customer service and the ability to get the books from all areas through a co-op, which is going to be up and running very, very soon.
Thank you. Mr. Miranda, you again.
Howdy.
Hi. In your narrative, you also indicated big projects are coming to Santa Clarita. With big projects coming, indicate better paying jobs. This is exciting news for us all. And there were lots of residents who would welcome the addition of better paying jobs. Can you fill us in on the big projects which are on the horizon?
Sure. Sure. The biggest project on the horizon right now is Needham Ranch over by Eternal Valley Cemetery. The buildings are going up already. The land is cleared, and more buildings will be going up shortly. When that's done, that's going to allow in Santa Clarita for 3,000 to 5,000 new jobs. If you look at those buildings, if you look at the people developing that whole project, they're looking for high-tech companies. They're working with the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation. They're working with the Chamber of Commerce. You know, one of the things people forget when we talk about bringing jobs to a community and encouraging companies to come here is the College of the Canyons. That's one of the primary reasons why companies want to come to Santa Clarita. There is an educated pool of workers here in Santa Clarita that they can tap into. So we look for things like that. And so Needham Ranch is one of the many projects. We have a new project over by off of Route 126. And by the way, all the projects don't have to be in Santa Clarita, but they have to be in the Santa Clarita Valley so we can get to them. All right? So all the jobs may not necessarily be in Santa Clarita, but off of the 126, just by the Commerce Park, there's the IATA Center over there that's huge, and it's a lot of high-tech jobs. We also have some, and I know I'm out of time, but I just want to say, somebody mentioned Whitaker Burmite. We could build jobs there like you wouldn't believe. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Nichols, switching to the topic of public safety, what do you think Santa Clarita can do to make life better for disabled people and to facilitate their safety and their ability to move about town?
Well, I don't exactly. Okay, let me just start out with. I took the trail, which people told me, oh, well, you should have been on that trail because you're, a scooter, you're a motorized vehicle. But anyway, from Canyon Country, going towards the Facey that's now closed. And that was one time, and that was pretty scary because it's very isolated. And I know a lot of homeless sleep in the riverbed. So, and then a friend of mine said, well, he walks 5 miles every day. But he said, oh, well, it only happened to me one time where a homeless person came up and, kind of had a knife and kind of scared me. And I'm thinking to myself, one time is enough. I'm never go again. So as far as the public safety for disabled, I don't know the answer. I mean, because you know what, disabled are we're just people. We're people just like everybody else. Everybody needs to be safe. The homeless needs to be safe. That's what they say that they want. They're up all night because they're worried about their stuff being stolen. You know, homeless people attack other people to get it. There's like little tribes. So everybody are just people. So I don't think that the seniors or the the disabled should be singled out for safety. I just think that it just should be like everybody else. We're just people, as I said. Thank you.
Winner is? Ken. Diane Troutman will start. And we're going to go with Diane that way.
Oh, finally.
Okay. You want to take Diane? Or
No, you can take it. You're ready.
Yeah. All right. In your narrative, Diane, you proposed establishing a new city division to develop and manage an effective homelessness plan. Could you elaborate on the roles and responsibilities of this new division and how it would differ from the current homeless subcommittee, and how they would be tasked in minimizing homelessness in Santa Clarita?
Well, I think staff members, I like the idea of committees anyway for a lot of different things, and we could have one or two staff members who could work in this area and then have community members who have some area expertise in this who could be a part of that, sort of a committee, commission, however you want to call it. And those people could be working through the homeless plan to help put all of that together, connect everybody, call those meetings, make sure everything is on track, provide oversight, and help to guide, because what I said before about the homeless plan is that you've got sections where you have law enforcement and the schools and this agency and that agency is going to do something, and basically the end of the report says, okay, all of you stakeholders go out and take charge of this, and yet, you know, the schools hadn't even heard about what they were supposed to be doing here. So there should have been one person who was leading that through and taking that on and making sure it gets done. The difference between that and what we have right now is that you have two people who are city council members who are on that group, and you're not invited. The public is not invited into those meetings. So we need to have more public meetings and get more people involved.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, your turn. You have stated, quote, "We need a swift, comprehensive action that addresses the root cause of homelessness." Singular. You care to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so if you've had an opportunity to take a look at the very expensive report the city compiled about homelessness and how to address it, the same one that Diane talked about that talks about bringing these different stakeholders and action groups and partners together in the community to address it, it identifies the root cause of homelessness in Santa Clarita. Mental illness plays a role, drug addiction plays a role, but what causes people to end up on the streets in our city is the cost of housing. Students and seniors and working class families can't afford the skyrocketing cost of housing in California, and they can't afford the skyrocketing cost of housing in the Santa Clarita Valley. Yeah, we have a housing shortage. A lot of the problems that we deal with are brought on by overdevelopment, but to some extent we do have to build more houses, at the very least because the Attorney General will take legal action against cities that don't build their fair share of housing. So instead of building market rate luxury homes in our valley so that more people can move here and drive up our water rates and clog our roads, we need to build housing for the people that are here. That means affordable, high-volume housing near public transit. If you, as Marcia mentioned, if you've driven by the Three Oaks development, it's a beautiful, beautiful development. And if I showed you a picture of it and said this starts at $2,400 a month, you'd probably believe me. But I believe those units cap at $1,500 or $1,600 for a 3-bedroom. More developments like that preserve the character of our city. They protect your property values, and they get homeless people off the streets. They get working families, into a safe home where they can focus on putting the kids through school and sending the kids to college because people don't have to live with that insecurity. We have space to develop to some extent, and if we look at rezoning near public transit, we can mitigate the impact that new development has on the residents of our city.
Ms. Nichols, I think I'm going to be asking the same people again, just in the reverse order.
Right. Yeah, you are. You are.
Anyway, Ms. Nichols, you indicated that, you're a proponent of public transportation, but ridership is down, not only in Santa Clarita, but pretty much everywhere recently. Should ridership on public transportation be subsidized by the city?
I think I already asked.
You did ask that
question
one?
earlier.
I didn't cross that one out.
Well, you should have.
I'm embarrassed. I made a mistake. You in your narrative, you stated that there are constituents who feel that they have no say in Santa Clarita issues. As a city council member, what would you do to dispel that perception?
Well, first of all, I agree with Jim Ben that 3 people shouldn't be have to put it on an agenda. One person, if a constituent comes to you and they've got a legitimate question or problem or something that they want to discuss, one board member or city council member should be able to put it on. The second thing is, it seems a lot of people come up and talk, but the city is pretty much already made up their mind on a lot of major issues, and the other ones you never hear anything about. When people come up. I mean, the manufactured homes, of course, they're still, residents are still not satisfied. And I do want to make one comment, and I know that people think that when you get to mobile homes, manufactured homes, that's the end. But that really isn't. You get into senior housing, and the rent keeps going up. It's supposed to be low-income housing. It keeps going up. And the problem is, once people are maxed out, they have no money, because what happens is people are living longer, they get less, they get the same Social Security. So therefore, when it gets to the high rent, they leave. There's somebody to take their place just like that, because that's just how it is. So the developers and the people that manage this place, they don't care, because they can just rent them out just immediately. So I think something needs to be done with that. Thank you.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes.
Fire department services is an important element of public safety. But since Santa Clarita is growing and is serviced by an LA County Fire District, how should our city council go about getting additional first responders, such as paramedic services?
Well, I think we're doing that now. We're working closely with the fire department. We're working closely with the sheriff's department. We're working closely with the hospitals and the EMT units, and to get as much service from emergency units as possible. We just broke ground on a new fire station, right? And over there on Golden Valley by Centerpoint. That's going to be another state-of-the-art fire station, and that's going to be big. That's going to be very big. That's going to provide a lot of emergency services right there in the middle of town. And so we're doing those kinds of things. We're budgeting monies to do those kinds of things. And even though the fire department and the sheriff's department are county agencies, we license them. Okay, we pay our fair share to have their services. And so we have a say in what they do here locally. I think, again, the key thing is to have good relationships with all the agencies, to work together to get what we need in terms of an emergency help here in Santa Clarita.
Ms. McLean. 2 years ago, LACO voted and passed Measure M, which provided housing for transportation improvements. What participation has the City of Santa Clarita had with the Measure M Steering Committee, and how much funding is being made available for Santa Clarita transportation improvements?
Oh gosh, I'm glad you mentioned that, because when Measure M was being bandied about and talked about, I was right there in the mix because I am interested in transportation and improvements for Santa Clarita. With Measure R, the previous measure, we were not getting our fair share. They were not going by the current population per capita amounts, and so we had to fight very hard when Measure M came about in order to be able to get our fair share. It's much better these days. We are a donor area through no fault of our own. We just pay more into the system than we get back. Also on Measure M, they wanted to cut funding for Metrolink in half. Now, I went to every single committee meeting that I attended through the organizations I belong to. I said, this is not acceptable. Metrolink is the one rail system that we have, commuter system, that gets people to where they need to go and when they need to get there. We don't have enough funding for Metrolink, so I fought very hard to make sure, and I kind of am a force to be reckoned with when something is going against Santa Clarita, and I made it very clear we would not accept that. So they did raise it back to the level that it was before, and you need to fight for every single penny that we get. And Measure M is making a lot of improvements here in Santa Clarita because we fought very hard to make sure that we were going to be getting our fair share.
Mr. Yeah, I'm next, right?
You are.
Yes. Mr. Hargett, in your narrative, you stated, and I'm quoting, "My drive to run for office came from meeting people who have no faith that the people representing them know what most people go through." That was the quote. As a city council member, what actions would you plan to take in order to get the faith of the people who you represent?
I think the biggest thing is reaching out to the younger generation that feels like the people that are up here don't share the experiences that they share. You know, and I hate to say I don't want to say anyone's age up here, but, you know, it is an older council, and we do have a younger median age in Santa Clarita. So you have younger people that go through a completely different experience growing up, a completely different experience getting jobs and trying to survive in the world. So having different people come up here and serve them that understand what they're going through, that understand the struggles that's different to them is important. So reaching out, getting them involved civically, making them feel like there's a better connection to people their own age that know their struggle, one of the most important things. And it's not easy. A lot of younger people also have trouble being involved in politics and wanting to be involved in their community. You know, it's not fun. It's not entertaining. It's boring a lot of the times, right? But trying to reach out and make everyone feel involved, especially in that younger age where they don't feel that connection. Most important thing.
Mr. Haddock?
Mr. Ferdman?
In your name.
Throwing him off.
I'm not going to ask you how to tie a bow tie.
Oh.
All right, let's go. Mr. Haddock, in your narrative you stated, with looming water shortages, we should be making more use of water we currently dump in the river. How do you propose we finance the infrastructure required to make recycled water available throughout the city?
Right now, we have most of the endpoints for the recycled water already laid down. We just don't have the big pipe that connects it to the reclamation plants. So we need to find money if we have to turn over every couch cushion and recycle every can, but we need to make sure that the reclamation plants that we have are tied into the reclaimed water. And we also need to plan for the future and make sure that we're also recharging our local aquifers. Right now we're sending all of our water downstream. We need to be pumping it upstream to recharge and percolate down and make sure that we have some sustainable water for our future.
Mr. Gibbs. No. You introduced this a little bit in your introductory remarks, but you stated that one of the reasons for running is to minimize the city's exposure to CalPERS unfunded pension liabilities. Inasmuch as CalPERS is a state-run organization that is not controlled by city, are you suggesting that the city transition to its own retirement system independent of CalPERS? If not, what specific action by the city would you support in changing the way it functions now? You explained that the state just comes to the city to fill out the deficit.
Right.
What would you suggest?
Right. From a very personal standpoint, I find long-term debts that we pass on to future generations very abhorrent. As you mentioned, as I've mentioned before, it being a state-run issue, so we go into it, we put our people are putting into the program, and they're making promises. So the state says, hey, we're going to come out and give you 7.5%. That's going to be our return rate. Well, for 10 years, the state missed the mark. They weren't anywhere near it. So all of a sudden, the state comes in and says, well, we got to drop it down a little bit. So they go from 7.5% to 7% over a couple years, which stands for hundreds of thousands of dollars that cities now have to come up with. In the city of San Luis Obispo, in order for them to meet the minimum payment because of this drop, they're now talking about opening all kinds of dispensaries to sell a bunch of weed because they hope they can tax the crap out of it, excuse my language, to be able to pay their obligations to the state. They're also talking about passing special property taxes just to pay their minimum obligations. So I'm not necessarily advocating for transitioning, but what I am suggesting is the city can take a very active role in paying down what we are obligated to pay now. So when we get 10 years down the road, we can get to a point where we have paid all of our obligations that we pay as we go. So if the state misses the mark again, or they say we need to lower our return from 30 years to 20 years, it's not as big of a hit. And on the off chance that the state starts getting it right and CalPERS makes good investments and they can return the actuarials back to 7.5%, 8%, that's money we get back that we didn't get to expect. So there's nothing bad, in my mind, from having our obligations paid that will only be a benefit down the road.
Thank you.
Mr. Dean, it's no secret that Canyon Country feels as though they're not being treated fairly. Your narrative indicated Canyon Country needs more amenities. Could you please provide some examples of what is needed to improve Canyon Country and how the improvements would be financed?
Well, first of all, there's a building on Soledad that's just past White's Canyon, and it's been, I don't know if it's an office building or it's supposed to be an apartment building or whatever it is, but it's been sitting there vacant as an eyesore for years and years. And I don't understand why the city can't do something with eminent domain and take over this building and do something with it and having just sit there like it is. Also, as you go from White's Canyon all the way down, actually from Sierra Highway all the way down to Sand Canyon, it looks like a 1950s look. Nothing's changed in 50 years there. We need to do upgrading. The only thing that I know that's been done there is Canyon Country Park. Other than that, in that stretch of area, which is traveled by thousands of people, they need to do something with landscaping and designs on existing buildings to make them pop out, very much like what they did with downtown Newhall. Like I said before, they took an old downtown Newhall that looked like 1940s, and they made it an upscale community, trendy restaurants, trendy shops. We could do the same thing for Canyon Country. Canyon Country needs this. We need to have that focus. Thank you.
Mr. Boydston, in your narrative on public safety, you indicated a year-round homeless shelter should be built immediately. To accomplish this task, do you believe the city should fund and manage the effort?
Thank you, Mr. Furman. Yes, I believe that the homeless shelter to be built has to be funded. So my proposal would be to take whatever monies that we are able to obtain through Measure H toward that facility, and that then we should ask the county to match half of it, and we should match the other half of it. So if they are going to give us, let's say they will give us $2 million, then we will put another $1 million in and have the county put another $1 million in. If they gave us $5 million, then we'd ask the county to put in $5 million, and we put in $5 million. We start with whatever we get and make sure that it does get built, even if it's smaller, and you can add on to it as revenues come in. The homeless issue is a critically important thing because it's not just about the homeless people. Homeless people living outside it's it's actually a problem. It's a public safety and health problem. Here in Santa Clarita, we're in a first world country, not a third world country. Indoor sanitation is incredibly important. Sanitation that is treated well is important. And it can lead to epidemics and has led to epidemics in other places. I have a lot of experience with homeless because when I managed property in Santa Monica many years ago, I saw Santa Monica then as I see Santa Clarita now. And we need to build that shelter, and we also need to make sure that people who are homeless, and if we're going to assist them, then we should have a program where we put them to work and have them work. Thank you.
Ms. West. Hi. In your narrative, several cybersecurity experts have stated that the most vulnerable institutions are municipal governments. What has Santa Clarita done, and what should it do to enhance its cybersecurity?
Well, that's a really good question. Everybody needs to guard their PC. I mean, let's face it, we're all at risk around the world. You can get to anything from any country at this point. We work very hard to protect City Hall, and we've got dark fiber in the street, and we're working continuously to expand that so that we can ensure that we will be able to technologically reach everyone.
Mr. Weber, your narrative did not include any details on your direct involvement with the Santa Clarita City Council. Could you provide information relative to your past involvement with Santa Clarita governance and how it qualifies you as a city council candidate?
I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman. I grew up out here. The people that you talk about that are homeless aren't just like people. They're like people I grew up with. They're like friends. I'm of age where it affects them. You know, a lot of these solutions that people are coming up with or mentioning, there may have already been a program already out there. There may have already been, you know, as Lorraine has been saying, there may have been already these solutions. And it's an informed public that is necessary, because if without an informed public, then we're all coming up with ideas here, and we have all these wonderful ideas, but some of them may have already been implemented. There may be other factors. So you have one solution, but then it creates another solution. We talk about bringing a year-round homeless shelter, and obviously that's an important issue. And there's other issues that come with that. I mean, they're talking about people coming to Santa Clarita, and then we have a bigger homeless problem. And so it's not necessarily like we alleviate one problem with another. It's that there has to be a combined effort from just City Council. Without that, we need to actually have the entire city involved. We need to have interactivity. We need to have an informed public. And that's why I'm here. I mean, the people I grew up with, they don't feel a connection with City Council at all. None of my friends are up here. I don't know any of them at all. I grew up out here.
Mr. Barman, let's stay on the topic of homelessness. You spoke about a belief that a spiritual center would help us alleviate the homelessness problem. Could you expand upon that for us, please?
Sure. Two traits of mine that I really thought were my weakness are really my strength, which is compassion and empathy. I've seen a lot of homeless, not only in Los Angeles and Skid Row, but in different parts of the world. It's not because they're lazy. If they want a job, they can work for Uber. It's two reasons: mental and drugs. If there's some sort of spiritual center where there's no affiliation, let them heal from within. Give them time to heal from within, and then teach them. This is $100. You need $50 for rent. You need $10 for food. You need this much for this much. And then get them to work, painting houses, landscaping, anything to get them to earn an income, find peace from within, heal from within, teach them basic money management, and then get them working.
Okay. Just wanted to let you know that we pegged this pretty close. I have it right on our sheet here that the last question would start at 8:38, and it is 8:42. So we're pretty close. We're getting right on the money. So in the last question, we're simply going to ask you all why we should vote for you and give you 90 seconds to convince us. And so we'll start with, oh my gosh. We'll start with number 15. Wow, that's amazing. So as the way we said we were going to do this, right? We said we're going to use a circular cube. So we get to Lorraine, who's 13, and then 14, and Mr. Dean will start as number 15, and we'll head that way.
Is that Las Vegas odds?
Hey, I tell you, this has been, I think this is. Have you ever seen this done before?
No.
There you go.
There must be a reason for that.
This is the closing statement. I understand.
Yes.
Okay. 1984, I ran for the California State Assembly. Did very well. Obviously, I didn't win. But at the time, I realized that what we need to have a city here. And I did a little research, and I was president of the Optimists at the time. And we had a lady by the name of Connie Warden show up and talk about cityhood. And afterwards, I said, you know what, I want to join the City Formation Committee. And I did. And I'm proud today to say that I am one of the founding fathers of the city of Santa Clarita that we all enjoy so much. Just to give you a little background on some of the things that I've been involved with, I think if you're going to be on the city council, you should have some experience with issues dealing with the city on committees or commissions or something along that line. I was on the Open Space Committee, and I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of what we've done with that. I was on the Hillside and Ridgeline Committee, protecting our hillsides and ridgelines when the developers were chopping them all down. I was on the city and the Chamber Transportation Committees. I've been involved with transportation ever since I can remember. I was on the Revive Downtown Newhall Committee, and in 1991 I was on the Veterans Memorial Committee with a gentleman named Warren Johnson, if anybody remembers Warren. And now we have this great Veterans Memorial. Thank you.
Mr. Boyson?
My family moved here when I was 5 years old, and there was 8 kids in our family, and we were poor, and we lived in the sticks, which is now Sand Canyon. I went to school at Sulphur Springs Elementary, and then went to Placerita Junior High School and Canyon High School, and was a benefit of the great schools here in Santa Clarita. And then I served my country for 4 years in the Air Force, and then I came back here, and I went to COC, and then transferred to Northridge. And a few years later, after living someplace else that wasn't great, which was Santa Monica, I met my wife, who I'm happy to say is here this evening, who's Ingrid, a school teacher, and we've been together for 27 years. And this is our home because I wanted this to be our home. And so I have been honored. The first time I ran for office was for a county supervisor when we tried to have a county before we had a city. I think I was about 23 years old. And I don't give up easily, and it was always a dream to serve the people on this city. And so I thank each and every one of you for voting for me in the past, and I hope you will vote for me again, because I will listen to you. That is the number one thing. And I will always do my homework, and I will always vote to use your money very wisely, because I never forget who's in charge, and that's all of you. So God bless you, and please go to the very last name on the ballot, mine, and please vote for me. Thank you.
Ms. West?
Well, we need a mic. Thank you. Let's go back to 130. Go back. Can I write to thank you? Perfect. Santa Clarita is a great place to live. We can raise our families. We have a beautiful valley. And I'm running to continue serving you to keep our precious quality of life, and my highest priority is your public safety. We have one of the safest cities in America, and we have almost 10,000 acres of open space purchased to date, and we're expanding our 34 parks, and we're improving our 85-mile trail system, which is a crown jewel in the state. So thus this whole life will be continually better in the Santa Clarita Valley. We are considered one of the best places to live in America, but we can do more. Improving our traffic, expanding our road network, critically building things like Via Princesa are imperative for us. Improving our transportation options has been talked about this evening. Just the other day, we were approved with $47 million to improve the I-5. We partner with federal and state and county at this point, and with that, we are building a new sheriff's station on 9 acres. We're building a Candy Country Community Center. We're partnering for a brand new senior center, and we're planning a Saugus library. We're bringing the arts with the Lemley Theater next year, and it will groundbreak this week. We just opened the usage of the restored Newhall Family Theater and the Main in Old Town. We're assisting with veterans and seniors homes, and we're working with the homeless, and we have purchased the land, and we will get a shelter built. Protecting you with strong drug prevention. I just want to say we are now one of the best places anywhere, and I would like to continue serving you to continue the legacy.
Mr. Weber?
It's been an honor to be here, to be part of this. Santa Clarita, the city of Santa Clarita, they've done a really good job of getting us here. The city council has done a great job. I mean, I love Santa Clarita. I do. And I love it so much that I moved away. I moved away for 10 years. I went to go work for a major law firm, a multi-state law firm. And while there, I lived in L.A. I also lived in Westlake Village. Westlake Village and Thousand Oaks is kind of a similar feel to Santa Clarita, I would say. And I moved back home not because I wanted to work further away. I drove an hour away, every day to go to work. And so I moved back home. I bought a house out here, and I would commute every day to work. To eventually, I quit, and I started a job. I started several companies in Santa Clarita, and that's what I am. I'm an entrepreneur in Santa Clarita. I represent the younger generation. I feel like our demographic is not represented at all on City Council, and I want a fresh approach, a fresh idea as someone that's not part of the inner circle, not on committees, not doing any of those kinds of things. And I'm a businessman, and I know what businesses want. Thank you.
Mr. Varma?
Thank you. It really is a privilege for me to be a candidate for City Council. I represent a very diverse city, Santa Clarita, of all ages. My father has been fulfilling government contracts for DOD for over 20 years for Department of Defense. I've closed on government contracts. After my son was born, Max, everything in my life changed. And that's what's so special about this place, is it's very family-oriented. And it's a place where we could do something very big here, which is to land an Olympic training center over by Burmite. I was able to take the tour last week, and there is a very, very big opportunity to land something like that with Castaic up the street, concert halls, indoor swimming, gymnastics. The whole world could be watching. We have that opportunity and possibility in front of us. Creating jobs. I've taken F-150 truck guys out of Santa Clarita to do construction, all that job, all that work, a sustainable economic future for Santa Clarita. But now it takes money, support, and a vote, and I'm asking for all three. So thank you.
Mr. Alden?
Thank you. I'm running because it's time for a new voice, for new ideas in our leadership in our city. The Santa Clarita Valley is expected to double its population within the next 30 years. Whether or not that actually happens and how it happens is really up to us. This is only going to exacerbate traffic congestion, lack of affordable housing, homelessness, threats to public safety, and uncertain water resources. To guarantee long-term success, we need fresh thinking, we need innovative solutions, we need increased collaboration and greater government transparency, as you've heard. We can't approach problems in the same way we've always done them. Things are changing. We have to try new approaches. We can't exclude people from the process. We need to bring them in. We need to bring the youth in. And we need to develop a cohesive community. And we can't maintain our quality of life if we don't protect existing neighborhoods as we grow. I've been on the Planning Commission. I had the honor of serving you for 12 years. I've worked on a lot of projects, but I was not in a position to exercise any authority on policy and direction and vision. But I am prepared to do that. I ran a business for 12 years. I served on the PTA for 18. I've been a nonprofit leader with various organizations for 23 years. I'm still doing those things, and I'm still working to preserve our environment here as a Sierra Club member. I'm endorsed by the Sierra Club and other organizations. And I ask for your vote and your support. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
My name is Logan Smith. I'm 25 years old, just a few years younger than Councilman Smythe was the first time he was elected to the council back in 2000. I've lived in the Santa Clarita Valley for 13 years, and I'm a professional nonprofit organizer by trade. Back last year in 2017, I helped pass the California Disclose Act as the statewide field director on the California Clean Money campaign, where in a sweeping bipartisan victory, we passed the single strongest campaign finance reform bill, not just in California, but in the entire country, dealing a huge blow to billionaires and special interests that try to deceive and lie to voters with misleading campaign advertising. And that's something that's guided me in my campaign for city council, which is why I'm proud to say I haven't accepted a single penny from developers and large corporate interests, and I never will. I'm proud to say that I'm endorsed by my friend Senator Kevin De Leon, who helped lead the film and tax credit expansion that brought more than $30 million in economic revenue right here to the Santa Clarita Valley. And I'm proud to say that I have the support of my friend Ash Kaura, who pushed a bill, AB 20, which would have diversified the CalPERS portfolio and shielded cities like Santa Clarita from volatile investments. And I'm proud to say that I have the support of local leaders like Christy Smith, Katie Hill, Adele Alonzo, and organizations not just here in our community but across the country like the National Union of Healthcare Workers, the Sierra Club, and the League of Conservation Voters. It's time to elect leaders who care more about the next generation, the next election. And it's time to elect leaders who will tackle the problems we're facing as a community with head-on solutions for opioid epidemics, the homelessness crisis and housing crisis here in our community, and the crippling lack of good mortgage-paying jobs of the future that will make this a city livable, not just for past generations, but for my generation and generations to come. Thank you.
Ms. Nichols?
Well, I ran in 2016, and I came in the top of the newbies, and I was real proud of that. Everybody else had run before, except I think it was number 5. There was like 11 people, so I was really proud of that. I'm really an advocate for the disabled. I wasn't allowed to put that on the ballot. I had to put retired because I didn't do that for a living. Well, guess what? I wasn't disabled when I was working. It just, happened gradually. I'm like in my 50s. So at any rate, I worked in home health care. I was a manager for 20 years of home health care, sending people to nurses, physical therapists, etc., out to people's homes so that they could be assisted. I've seen a lot of things. We had grants from the senior center when I worked in Detroit. So I saw a lot of people that were really needed help that the city and the senior center really helped them. And they went out to people's homes. Now, that's one of the problems that the senior center has that I keep hearing, is that you have to go to them. They don't come to you. But at any rate, I hope that you vote for me. I have a master's in public administration from Cal State University, and I really would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Miranda?
I moved to Santa Clarita 35 years ago because of its great schools and good public safety and great family environment. It's still a great place to live in. I got involved in the community almost immediately. My wife and I worked with a nonprofit called United Families. United Mothers was actually the title that it ended up being. And we've worked with nonprofits ongoing since that time. I worked with the Chamber of Commerce. I was the CEO of the Latino Chamber of Commerce. I know about diversity. I know about diversity in this community. When I moved to this community 35 years ago, there was not quite anywhere near the diversity that exists today. I push for the Latino businesses. I push for Filipino businesses. I work with the African American community here in Santa Clarita. I've worked with the Pakistani community here in Santa Clarita. So I work with a lot of diverse companies, a lot of diverse agencies here in Santa Clarita. I am a change on the council, right? So for those who keep saying we need to change the council, I am change. Look at me. Am I change? I'm change on the council, okay? And so one of the things people need to understand is to get things done on the council, you need 3 votes. You need to get along. That's part of it. You need to persuade. You need to do whatever it takes to get your point across. Thank you.
Ms. McLean?
I started my career working for the Los Angeles Police Department, and then I worked for a Los Angeles City Councilman, and then I worked for the federal government, and I was assigned to the American Embassy in Paris, France, and that's where I met my husband. He was from New York, I was from California, so we had to meet somewhere. We were married and drove back here to California. The reason I mention having worked for the federal government is because experience counts. Experience enables me to be able to work with all levels of government to make sure that we get the money that we need to build our roads. Since I've been on the council, we've been able to invest $300 million in new roads and improvements. They don't just hand you that money. It's a very competitive process, and you have to know the players. And it takes time to build up relationships so they know me, and they know that when I come after something for Santa Clarita, I get it. I was working with the League of California Cities. I was able to help our city save $1.3 million. That's all of you. That stays in our budget and not Sacramento's. We have a long ballot this time, so please make sure that you get all the way down to the bottom of the ballot. It's very important that you vote for our city council. I'm number 245, and if you have any questions, you can call me at 255-1259 to be able to discuss some of the things that were discussed here and to be able to maybe to build on your knowledge for that. Please vote for me, number 245, Marsha McLean. Thank you so much.
Mr. Haggett?
All right. You know, it's such an honor to be up here with everyone on this panel. You know, so many great ideas, so many people that just want to give back to the community. You know, and I'm born and raised in this town. I'm 32 now. I grew up right in the Valencia side of Singing Hills, and you know, it's been an honor to serve already in a capacity as a first responder here. But I've wanted to take it a step more for everyone. You know, I go out and see a different side of it. I see the homeless people that are actually struggling in the street. I go and pick up kids that are overdosing and try and make a little bit of a difference with them before we drop them off, you know? And it's at the end of the day, everyone just wants to feel comfortable. Every one of you, everyone sitting in this board, everyone in this town just wants to feel safe and comfortable with what's going on in their lives. And I think really anyone up here will make a fine choice to help you with that, but I'd like the privilege of serving on the council and giving you the opportunity to work with. So thank you all for coming out today. Have a good one.
Mr. Haddock?
Mr. Ferdman? This was my last shot. I had to get one in. All right. My name is Brett Haddock. I'm a 34-year resident, and I'm 33 years old. And I'm going to recycle another joke that I've used previously. My first apartment was really dark. That's how you save the environment. You recycle jokes. My grandparents moved out here in the early 60s. My grandfather worked construction where he helped pour concrete along the 5 freeway, the very concrete they're tearing up right now. My grandmother did janitorial work in town, and they just wanted to provide a little bit better future for their kids. My father has been a small business owner, and my mom was a lunch lady in our local schools for 20 years. And she just retired and is going a little stir crazy. And that brings it to me. And I managed to be a software engineer at eBay. And I'm still doing the math on trying to figure out the lineage of that career path. But I've put my career on hold because I believe in my city, and I want to do what's right for my city, and I want to give back. I've volunteered over 300 hours at Bridge to Home. I've done my very best to try to give back as much as I can, and I see the best way for me to give back right now is to serve you on the city council. I hope that I've illustrated tonight that my thinking is a little bit out of the box. I like new ideas. I consider myself to be intellectually curious, and I think that we need some fresh ideas and some new blood on the City Council. So I look forward to talking to all of you, and I hope I can earn your vote in November. Thank you.
Mr. Gibbs.
It was right there.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, everybody. So I was born and raised in Santa Barbara, California. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where I majored in mechanical engineering with both a bachelor's and a master's. It took me almost 10 years. That 9th year, while I was working full-time as an engineer, I got confused as a professor when playing basketball with some kids, so I decided it was time to get moving on. But I was very fortunate that last year I was there. I met my beautiful wife, Chandra, who was the onus that brought us here to Santa Clarita. She was a biomedical engineer who works for Boston Scientific. 2 years ago, she gave me the greatest treasure in my life, and that was my son, Aiden. And just this past year, she gave us my daughter, Avery, who's 8 months, going on 16. We live in a very beautiful city. There is no doubt about it, and we are blessed to be here. But I'd like to bring in a new perspective to see what can happen when we get complacent. Santa Barbara was a wonderful place to raise a family and grow up. That opportunity is gone. If you could buy a home in Santa Clarita, you're over $1 million on the street where I live that used to be considered just basic middle income, middle class living. San Luis Obispo is the same thing. The young families that stay there aren't having kids. They're not raising families, and they're still living that college life because there is no place they can afford. It's $700,000-$800,000. I see the similar things happening here, and I worry about. We do have a new stock of homes coming in. There's talks of over 30,000 homes coming in over the next decade in various developments. But the commercial and the business infrastructure that's coming with it is just not enough. We need to enhance that development. We need to bring the jobs here, get people off of the roads, to get people away from the 5. And my time is up. Jason Gibbs, I hope you vote for me on November 6th. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.
Well, I'd like to thank all of the candidates. I don't get
You went first.
You can't do it twice. I'd like to thank all of the candidates and all of the audience for taking the time to be here this evening. I want to tell you that I intend to send this tape to Washington, to the Senate, to prove that you can have 2 hours of political dialogue that is without the necessary yelling and screaming.
And one of us is named Brett.
There you go. So let's give all of our candidates a big hand. And I hope this helps each of you to have a better chance at making an informed decision when you vote in this coming November. Patty, you had something?
I just want to thank everyone. This has been a great forum. I hope all of you have learned a lot about all of our candidates. I certainly have. And again, I wanted to say thank you to everyone, not only our candidates, but also to our audience. Thank you all very much. And let's give our candidates a round of applause.
Thank you.